Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me on my episode 3 of the Mind of Reese podcast. I'm Reese, if you don't already know. So as far as today, I would like to talk about letting go a bit. So lately, there's been a lot of things that have been happening. And the things that I like to talk about when it comes to each episode is basically everything that kind of I experience in my business or in life in general, and mostly with business, just because I like to, this podcast is very much dedicated to how I handle my business, how I handle my tattoo business, how I handle my coaching business, how I handle, and where I niche down a lot is in social media and how I help artists grow their business through social media. And so, and preferably with Instagram. And so, whenever things start to happen, whether it be in any of those areas, I definitely like to come over here and talk about it and be very real and authentic about it, because I know that I'm not the only one dealing with these issues. And a lot of people won't vocalize it because I think it's, as an ego thing, like our ego takes over and is like, well, fuck that. I'm not going to talk about this or that. So, and in this episode, what I'm talking about is letting go. And I'm talking about letting go of negative comments on social media or negativity via email when, a client gets upset or they feel like that you're ignoring them, you're not getting their emails, or recently someone came to me needing a touch-up on their tattoo that I had done recently, and the way it came about was just, the way it sounded to my assistant was that it was very abrasive, and so you get all these things, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But when you get into these things about like letting go of situations, you really truly just, it has to be coming from the heart. You can't just say you're going to let go and then hope it goes away. That's the first step for sure, is being aware that you need to let something go. You need to let shit go, because you can't take it personally. It's life, shit happens. I'm a human. You're human. Shit happens. It's just the way it goes. If we don't have any adversity in our lives, then how the fuck do we grow? We don't. We stay in our little bubble and we stay in our box. So what we need to do in order to let something go, for instance, let's say we're talking about this particular email, for instance, or this particular comment on social media. It's like you can read it subjectively and understand that maybe this person is either, whatever it is, having a bad day. The whole saying misery loves company, it is an energy-based thing. Energy is so prevalent everywhere. Everything is made out of energy. Our whole molecular system is energy, just bouncing back and forth off of each other, the atoms just going like this. And that's what makes us look solid. But it's just energy. It's just energy. So when you feel this emotional something from someone else, or from some comment or whatever, it can either, and for the most part, this is where this is where we, having to take 100% responsibility for our own actions and reactions is where this comes into play, because anybody could just be a hater just to be a hater, or anybody could just be angry just to be angry. But if there's some validity behind the anger, like for instance, hey, someone wants a touch up, or you haven't gotten back to their email, something like that, like they're like frustrated and you feel that frustration, taking it personal is not going to help you. Taking it personal is not going to help them either. All you got to do is just kill them with kindness. For me, when it comes to my clients, I just kill them with kindness. And, and it's funny thing is that in particular with this particular email and the way that my assistant had taken it, she got defensive for me. And she was just like, how dare her say it like this and like that. And I'm like, well, if she's upset, we just got to remedy the situation. And let me tell you guys one thing. If you're a tattoo artist and you're listening to this podcast, everybody fucks up. if you are coming from a background, especially in this industry where it's really, really hard to get into, you practically self-taught. So you're going to mess up. Like things like that happen. Yes, I understand the brevity of the situation. It is skin and it is important. And you know, to me, I take it so fucking seriously. I take my job so seriously that when things like this happen, it definitely can mess with my head. It makes me feel like maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not doing my best. Maybe what happened that day. And I can go over and over and over again and overwhelm and beat myself up about it. Or I can look at it from a perspective, and you know, and this is so great because when my assistant took this so to heart, it made me look at it from a different perspective. It made me look at it from a perspective of like, first off, super sweet for having my back. But at the same time, it's like, wow, you know what? I remember when I reacted like that, when people would send that to me personally. And now that I get to see it from a different way, from like, okay, so I can look at it from this way, but then I turn around and I look at the same thing from this direction, that's a different perspective. All of a sudden, I'm seeing something different. And I'm like, well, what can I learn from this? Instead of getting upset, taking it personal, whatever, it's like, what can I learn from this? What happened that day? Was there distractions? Was there something going on? Was it something with me? You know, I'm an emotional creature. Not every day I'm not a robot. Like, not every day is going to be perfect for me. So if shit happens. You know what I mean? And if you're an artist out there acting like you've never fucked up, please, this podcast is not for you, okay? Don't even tell me that, because I can talk to the best artists in the world and told me that for years they had messed things up a lot. And I'm not saying that messing things up to a point where they can't fix it, but and you know that could be true too, because in the very beginning of anybody's career, we start from what? Zero knowledge. You're not perfect. So the only people that get into this industry are the people that have the balls to make progress over perfection. That is the balls. That is the cojones that you need to get yourself to where you want to go. You know, and that's why this industry isn't for everybody, you know, because if you're a perfectionist in this industry, which is a really, really good thing in some ways, but I'm not talking about, you know, I'm not talking about trying to be the best or trying to, you know what I mean? But like, if you automatically assume that everything's going to be perfect and then you almost go into a depressive state when it is not, that is where that anxiety rolls up and all this other things. So that's when, you know, maybe you have to just pick and choose, like, what's really, what are you doing it for? You know, and at this point, when this particular, you know, email came up and there was an abrasiveness that was felt by my assistant, I had to look at it from a way of like, what can I learn from this? And first thing is you kill them with kindness. Right back. Hey, totally fine. Let's get you in right away. Reese would love to, you know, make sure that everything is beautiful and spruced up to your liking, like that kind of thing. And instead of me walking into a situation where I'm like, this person, you know, or like, you know, where like my ego is like, I can have an ego trip for sure. You know, I could already see it as, you know, someone else having that for me because they're like, Reese, you do amazing work. Like, how dare they? Like, no, I mean, this is a learning experience for not only me, but for the people that I employ, the people that are around me, my team, my partners. You know, it's like how my reaction is something that they learn and that they believe that that's an okay reaction. So in this particular moment, it had helped me grow in such a beautiful way because I learned to breathe. And that's what we got to do, guys. The breath is number one. I think I will always mention this in probably every single episode because it's so true. Our breath, our moment to just sit back and think. And when people say think before you speak, I never understood that. In my 20s, I always felt like I was thinking before I was speaking. But I feel like that there is a way of doing it in a very like calming, non-defensive way. You know, I'm not talking about when you're actively listening to someone and you're automatically thinking of the next thing you should say to them because of what you're trying to project at them and what you're trying to get them to believe that who you are or what your opinion is. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about thinking in a way that is coming from your heart and not from your ego. When you think from your ego, that's not thinking before you're speaking. That's just not actively listening to what the situation is, and you automatically getting defensive. So when your ego is speaking, it's not coming from an authentic place. But when it's you and your intuition, because my first thing to do is to get defensive. Of course. Well, she fucked that shit up. I didn't do that. I didn't mess that tattoo up. Like he's the one who didn't take care of it. She's the one who, that kind of thing. Like it's that doesn't matter. We could say that and it'll make us feel good for 2.5 seconds. But in the grand scheme of things, what does that do for you by not letting it go, by getting angry at someone? And this could be in any situation. I only bring up tattoo situations because that is very relevant for me. And that is, I am an artist and these things happen a lot. They happen all the time. You're always going to get a disgruntled person. If you are in the service industry, not everybody's going to be happy. I'm really, really lucky. I've worked very hard to get to where I'm at. I have 7 years under my belt. It's not very long, but it's long enough to know things and have experience. And so it's like, I'm lucky enough to where this particular situation rarely happens. And then when it does happen, it always tends to happen more than once, right after the other. Then you start thinking, you start getting in your mind that, am I a bad tattoo artist? You know what I mean? I haven't had to touch up anybody's tattoo in years, and now I've got 4. What? But it happens, you guys. I'm a human. I'm not a fucking printer, That's not the way we are. That's not the way we roll. This life is human. We're supposed to have this human experience. If everything was supposed to be perfect, then how do we grow? How do we learn more? I would already be perfect and I'd already have everything. I wouldn't have to have this podcast. You know what I mean? This podcast is for you and for me. I learned so much doing these things, and I learned so much teaching and coaching people. This makes me elated. It makes me feel like I'm doing my part, because not only do I love tattooing people and changing lives in that direction, but I love helping people change their perspective on life and on their business and the way that they do things and the way that they look at things. That is why I'm here. So it's in any situation, learn to let it go. Learn to let it go in a way and be constructive about it. Constructively look at a situation. And if you get mad, trust me, don't get it twisted. It happens to me. I've had moments where I'm like, and that's my crazy moment. When I'm just it could be the smallest thing. I can't open the peanut butter bottle. I don't know. Or it could be a big thing where big or little, that's totally relative to you. But and it's not, that's based on your perspective. But or something bigger where it has something to do with my work, or it has to question my work. That's hard. It is hard. And to be upset by that, I can understand it. So usually, and this is what happens, is that if I were to go the different route, as far as my assistant goes, when she got defensive for me, it almost was that's the way we're conditioned. We're conditioned to defend ourselves and to fight back and to blame others and not take responsibility. And I'm not saying that to be pointing fingers. I mean it more as just that's how I break it down for me. And that's how I feel when I get defensive and that kind of thing. And so when I notice this, is a really good opportunity for me to just be hey, let me read the email first so that I'm not taking on her energy and then we're pitchforking and being hate, you know what I mean? Because it is very true. Energy spreads like wildfire, whether it be negative or positive energy, it spreads like wildfire. And people tend to bandwagon when it comes to anything, when it comes to a trend, when it comes to hate, when it comes to bashing, when it comes to, and especially negativity. You guys, I'll get into this a little bit later, but with negativity and people bandwagoning. Like, don't get me wrong, like this happens like always. I always say, oh, never bandwagon negativity. But in that moment, I could have. In that defensive moment, I could have been like, yeah, what a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, and it can happen. So, but instead I took it in a different route and I was like, well, let me read it. And, I could see why she got defensive. A lot of times when people want to come back and want to do those things, it's very like super sweet. And they're just like, it's nothing you did. It's just, maybe it was me. You know what I mean? And they're very like, they tread lightly. In this particular situation, I think just there's an understanding there because the actual individual who wrote, let's just say that who some of your clients, the personalities of your clients are all different, and you just deal with them in case-by-case situation. And so for this particular client, I understood who she was as a person and where she was coming from. And so for me, I could see where she got really defensive on this particular thing. But at the same time, obviously there's nothing wrong with it. I don't need people to sugarcoat shit for me. Like, that's the funny thing, is that if it's a straight shooting email, it's a straight shooting email. But a lot of people get so defensive over words, and words are powerful. Words are very powerful, and I don't need it to be sugarcoated or, ass kissing in a way to where it makes me feel better about myself. Like, no, she needs this certain thing, fixed up, and we can do that. That's not a big deal. So it's like, it's about reading, not reading too far into it too. So like, especially in a day and age with technology where all we do is communicate through words, and people don't take words seriously enough, or they take it too serious to the point where we're literally walking on eggshells everywhere we go. And we're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to say this because I don't want to offend them in this way. And they might not understand via text. And honestly, to be honest, hate's a strong word, but I'm not a big fan of texting. So everybody that works for me, anybody that I have a relationship with, I'm FaceTiming your ass, okay? Because of the fact that I want to see your face. Not only that, I want to feel like I'm having a conversation with a human being. I don't like phone calls either. I'd rather FaceTime you. I'd rather see your face. Plus, I want to see your reaction when I say certain things. So it's like, I always can gauge that kind of thing. With text message, someone sends me a paragraph text message like this big, I just read it. I'm like, skim, skim, skim. Okay, cool. And then I gist it, and then I make an assumption on what it really means or what it's supposed to be, and then I miss things. And so I'm very bad with text messaging. So text messaging, I believe, is for like, hey, coming over, ETA. What's your ETA? That kind of thing, like super quick. Don't send me a long story. Like, let's talk this out either in person, which most of the time nobody has time for, and or you do it via FaceTime, which I think is way better. But anyway, so when you read into these things, you got to realize that like some people are straight shooters. Some people don't have time to be sugarcoating anything, or you know what I mean? And so you can take things defensively, or and it's like, and you want to put up your dukes and get ready for a fight, but at the same time, it's like, what does that do for you? What does that anger really do for you? It just kind of holds you back. Not letting something go holds you back, plain and simple. I could allow, and not only that, but it doesn't help me grow in my business. Like, and if I look at the situation and ignore it, or be like, whatever, or just go into it even during the time when they come back, and go into it being like, she didn't know what she's talking about, or he didn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't understand like how this works, blah, 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 blah. That does nothing for me. That does nothing for me, and that definitely does nothing for my team. And if most artists, tattoo artists especially, we're all individuals. We are an entrepreneur. Means ourselves. We are by ourselves, built this by ourselves. But for me, I don't believe we ever really do anything all by ourselves. You know what I mean? We do get help. And I'm lucky enough to have 3 people helping me at all times. And so it's really wonderful, but it also makes me really, really aware of how I react to situations, because they look They look up to me to my reaction. And of course, like, as a person that really wants to be a good leader and wants to, create good leaders, I got to be mindful of these things. And so again, and this doesn't even have to be because of it being a good leader. This just could be just because of the fact that you don't want to hold some sort of animosity in your body. Because holding that in there and blaming others and not taking responsibility for your reaction or your actions, it's like there's no peace. Everybody wants peace and happiness and peace of mind. For my peace of mind, let it go. I'm going to let this go, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to learn from the situation. And then if it becomes abrasive to the point where it's unnecessary, like let's say, I'm not saying be walked on like a mat. I'm not saying, you're like a doormat? Yeah, you're not a doormat. I don't mean it like that. There's a level of disrespect, and then there's a level of just being defensive and letting yourself have an ego trip. So, and your intuition will intuitively tell you what is going on. So you will know. And it's very, very, if you hear and if you get quiet and you listen to yourself and you really listen deep down, because you can, I say it's simple, but it's not easy. So it's like, it's simple to hear yourself. It's simple to listen. But the reason why a lot of us have an issue with listening to ourselves is because we have the ego constantly chattering in our brain, telling us one thing or another. That person sucks. That person sucks. You suck. Like, oh my gosh, you fucked up. I can't believe, and then you get defensive with your own brain. And you're just like, it's honestly just thinking about it it's exhausting. Isn't it exhausting? Don't you feel exhausted when that happens? Wouldn't you want to just learn from the situation instead of being defensive and just thinking that everybody's wrong and you're right, or vice versa? I mean, what's the point in that? I don't understand it. And a lot of times, when it comes to even letting go, a lot of people aren't going to be apologetic, and a lot of people aren't going to be the way you expect them to be. You expect, I want them to be happy now that I did this, They could probably just walk out the door and be like, whatever, and then that's okay. Yeah, it doesn't make you feel good. But that's okay. You can't take it personal. Like this, we as entrepreneurs, we are in a business, especially of service, whether it be actual manual labor, like brick and mortar shops, tattooing, that kind of thing, or whether it's coaching or something else, whatever you're doing creatively, we are a service industry and we can't take it personal. When someone doesn't like your art, for instance, it's like, oh, well, they don't know art. No, that has nothing to do with it. It just means that particular person just doesn't see, that person's just not your tribe. That person your vibe is your tribe. That person just does not vibe with you. And that is okay. I'd prefer to have a smaller span of people vibe with me than not. You know what I mean? Than have everybody fucking like what I do. I mean, obviously that is the goal. We all want everybody to like everything, so we have this validation. But is that really the goal? Should that be your goal? I don't know. Personally, I don't think so. Because I've gotten validation from certain things. I've been on TV, been told great, nice things, and I still feel something is missing. And you're just like, well, I got a little bit of that 15 seconds of fame thing. I'm a good artist. I've got these things. I'm successful. You know what I mean? It's like we're trying to put some sort of label on like this emotional feeling on things that actually don't come from external sources. They come from internal sources. So if I want to feel good about myself and my art, it comes from here. It comes from my heart. It comes from within me. Not without me. It doesn't come from outside of me. It just doesn't. I'm a prime example of it. I've said this in my first episode. If you guys haven't listened to my first episode of The Mind of Reese, please go do that. It's just talking about how getting everything you want doesn't actually bring you happiness. So yeah, we'll leave that topic there. But so what I'm saying is that, like, when shit like this happens, let it go. Learn to let go and learn to learn from it. Like, this is a big thing. That's growth. When you get uncomfortable, when someone kind of pokes at you and you're just like, whoa, red flags. Now, obviously, like, if someone pokes at you in a weird way, you know what I mean? Like, the red flags in that way, then run. But, if someone's, like, pushing a button that definitely makes you feel insecure, because that's what it is. If there's something within you that the reason why you react that way, it could mean, and whatever they're saying could not mean exactly what you think they mean. It's just that meaning that you believe that they're thinking. I hope I'm getting this right. The meaning that they are, the meaning behind what they are thinking is something completely on them. But the meaning behind what they are thinking that you think they're thinking is something on you, is a reflection of you. So when someone says, oh, I don't like your art, that doesn't mean I do bad art. That doesn't mean that at all. It just means that they particularly do not care for the style that I provide. And that is okay. That is okay. And or on, like, even for social media, when people give me negative comments, even on, because for probably 6 years, five and a half years, all I posted on my social media were tattoos and model photos. And not saying that that's a bad thing. That was totally my jam. And I owned it. And I loved it. All my travels, all this kind of thing. And that's who I was. And so I have 5.5 years worth of people that follow me only for that. And now, as I'm evolving into something different and something more, I mean more, because it makes me so incredibly happy and elated to be more of to bring more help to others and to as many people as I can with the podcast, with the coaching, with everything. I want to utilize my platform for something more substantial that means something to me more. And I'm starting to notice people are like, can you just go back to posting your tattoos? Or can you just go back to posting, your model photos? And what am I going to do? Get pissed? No, I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're no longer my tribe anymore. Those people are no longer my vibe anymore. And that is okay. And my vibe can change and anything can change. And that is okay too. Change is good. Change is growth. That's what we want. We want change. We don't want to stay in this box. Everybody always says, I want change. I want to do this. I want to do that. But at the same time, do you actually go out there and do those things? I hope so. I hope that you do. But for the most part, it's like I will talk about change, but I won't be about change. And that's the weird part, is that, like, for me, I am all about getting uncomfortable. I love being uncomfortable. I like the point of feeling like, oh man, I'm at a point where I need to break down a wall here. Because if I don't break this down, I'm not going to be able to be that person over there. I'm not going to be able to be that person I want to be over there so badly. So, of course, I like to be uncomfortable. Some people, that's not their forte. They don't like that. But I encourage you that the moments you do feel uncomfortable, or the moments you feel the ego bubbling up, take a step back. Reevaluate the situation. When your ego bubbles, when you're feeling uncomfortable, all these feelings, it just means that the universe believes that you are ready to move forward. That's amazing. That is fucking amazing. I can't even tell you how amazing that is. I can't. I get like teary-eyed about it because it's so true. It's like the moment you feel uncomfortable is the moment. It's like when I don't know. It's like when your dad is like, you're ready not to have training wheels. You can ride that bike on 2 wheels. You're like, I've made him so proud enough to make him believe that I can ride this bike only on 2 wheels? What? Yes. Like, that's what that uncomfortability means. That's when your ego is tripping out, that's that moment where the universe is like, ooh, is she ready to let go of that ego trip? Is she going to stop herself from, I'm going to throw, you know what I'm going to do? And this is the funny thing about the universe. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw 2 more touch-up she needs to do. I'm going to get her, make sure. So, that's why everything, you always feel like things happen more than once really quickly. And you're like, oh my God. And then you start questioning yourself and you start in disbelief, like, am I really that way? Because 2 people told me in back to back, am I really just the model? Like, or am I really, like, even yesterday, someone was like, Reese, you have a really big nose. I was like, oh. And when I was younger, I was really self-conscious about that. And so I was like, oh, do I have a big nose? You know what I mean? But in my mind, I'm like, okay, thank you for voicing your opinion about that. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like I say, it's so funny. I read this wonderful thing from, where did I read this? I forget, but I'm sure if you've heard it, you know where I'm talking about it. It's like, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got them and most of them stink. You know what I mean? So don't allow like an opinion to raise your ego and raise your anything. Just let go. And that's the whole point, is just to let it go. You know what I mean? If it's opinion, or if it's a constructive criticism, or if it's someone just actually aggravated with a service that you've provided, anything, you just got to let go of that ego trip. That's what I mean. Let go of your ego. We've all got it. It's hard to let it go. And when you do allow the ego to kind of run away with itself, well, don't beat yourself up about that. We're, and as far as I know, that I definitely have done that before, where I'll allow my ego trip to, and I just get so upset. And then once I'm done with being upset and like has let it out, I'm like, fuck, like, Reese, you should have reacted better. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have reacted like that. Not that I reacted like that in front of anybody. Sometimes I have, trust me. Like, I love my kids. I call them my kids, but they're my partners in crime. They're my biz partners. Like, I don't even consider them my employees. They're not. They are one of a kind, unique thought leaders of this world. Everybody is. And they have something to offer that is so unique to me. And I just can't, when I see them growing, it like melts my heart. So I'm completely love them. They're my partners in crime. So, but even when like in front of them, like, they know me so well. They see that I'm super goofball, but at the same time, I'm very serious about certain things, especially my business, especially about this. And they see me beat myself up about things. And my favorite thing that makes me feel like I've done something for them is when they can hold me accountable for being like, hey, you can act like that, but you should let it go. And when they're telling me that, I'm like, oh, did I teach someone something? Did I do that? Like, and it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? It's crazy. And so when my ego does that, they're always there to be like, all right, Reese, now don't beat yourself up about it. Because you have to have compassion on yourself when you kind of like back up a bit. You're like, oh, I took a step back. My bad. I allowed my ego, something that I've been doing for the past 30 years, allowing my ego to get the best of me. And in the last 5-6 years, trying to train my mind into letting it go more and more. And as the more I practice, the better I get at it. So your mind is a muscle, you guys. Like, you can train your mind to do these things. It doesn't happen overnight. You are too conditioned to force something to happen overnight. But you do have the ability to try to change it now and to be aware that you need to change it now. Being aware is the first step. That is the best step, because all of a sudden you're no longer in this spot over here. I don't want to say ignorance, but I just want to say like in the spot where you're not aware. And then now when you become aware, all of a sudden things start to open. There's not just a door. There's a window and a window there and maybe a little hidey hole over there that you can crawl through and get to the next place that you want to go. And so it's not just, it's unlimited resources there. So it's like being aware just opens so many different things, and it makes things so possible, and then makes it more figure outable, So yeah, so I would have to say that, like, let it go. At the end of the day, let it go. Let go of whatever. Let go of the opinions of others. Let go of getting defensive over something bad happening at work, or someone wanting you to fix a tattoo you did on them. Not a big deal, bro. Not a big deal, or, a bad email, a bad, bad day at work with the other, your other coworkers. Like, let it go. Because a lot of times it has nothing to do with you. A lot of times it has everything to do with them. And the way you react has a lot to do with you. And usually if I react poorly, in my opinion, I'm like, okay, why did that bother me so badly? Because to other people, they could read the same fucking thing and they could be like, all right, cool, yeah, whatever, So it's a reflection on me. It's a reflection on you, on the reaction that you have. And for me, it's like, okay, let me learn from that reaction. So you can keep learning and asking yourself the right questions, and asking yourself these questions to coach yourself into why this and why that. And I'm not saying why in a victimizing way. I mean it in a constructive way. I mean it in like, okay, well, I took it personal. Why did I take that personal? Why did I allow my ego to get so upset, to allow myself to think about it, to almost ruin more than 5 minutes of my day, me overthinking it and not getting anything else done. And then that just makes it worse because now I'm like, I haven't done anything today. And then I blame that on that particular situation or that reaction. And it's like, okay, let's reel it in. Let's take 100% responsibility for my reaction and let's learn from this. Why did I get so defensive over something like this? Well, maybe because I have this limiting belief that I'm not good enough. Whoa. Why do you think you're not good enough? And then you can just dive deeper from there. And so, what's so funny about breaking walls? You just start to realize, like, if you're being completely honest and authentic with yourself, it's like crazy how things just start changing and you see almost, it's like you're seeing colors differently. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So I encourage you to let it go. And if you can't let it go, and if you have like a little bit of ego trip, be compassionate with yourself. Forgive yourself, because it's the biggest thing. That's the greatest way to let something go, is forgiveness. And then ask yourself the questions as to, why did you react that way? And if you really want to dive deeper into it, because the deeper you get, the more you can break down whatever limiting belief that you believe about yourself in that situation to make you react in a negative way, quote unquote. I always quote unquote anything, because negative, positives, it's never anything negative or positive. So it's, with the way you react, like, you can ask yourself that question. And then once you start diving a little bit deeper, and maybe even going further back, like, gosh, you can go all the way back to like, well, I don't have this. Oh, why do you feel like you aren't good enough? Well, there was this one time when I was 5, some girl pushed me down and ripped up my painting because she said that I sucked. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not a true story, but I'm just saying, like, it could literally be something so in the very foundational, first memories of your life that you don't even realize. And then you're like, wow, well, that isn't even true. No, it's not true. It's just a story that has been created into my being, and I've held on to it because I believe that, I am I am that way. That person told me that, and I believe that I am that. And that is, I've always held on to that, even after becoming an artist and becoming successful and all this other stuff to validate me. There's still those underlying whatever, so I mean, like, and that's the way you break it down, kids. Like, it's just the way you can really, really figure out why you do the things that you do. And that is the whole point of this all. So I say, let it go, forgive yourself, forgive others, and no, don't do it for the expectation that they're going to come back and be nice or say sorry or whatever they're doing. And in any situation, goes to any situation. But you let it go for you. You forgive for you. You don't forgive for others. You don't do that for others because you want the peace of mind. Whatever happens to them is outside of you. You can't control that, but you can control what comes in here. So that's what I have to say about that, you guys. And so I'm sorry, I'm always ranting on and on. And I hope that this helps you, especially to my tattoo artist buddies out there, especially if you guys are having troubles with like answering your emails or talking with your clients and the way you speak to your clients, like that kind of way. You know, I think that a lot of that time is you have to realize that, like, well, actually, we'll get into this probably another time, but like when it comes to attracting the right people into your life, that comes from the actual foundation. When I'm talking about tattooing, when I'm talking about tattoo artists and their business, attracting the right vibe comes from your authenticity, and it comes from what you're putting out there. And that's the biggest reason why I chose to help artists with social media, because social media is our number one way of advertising, and it's free too, not less. But it's the first thing that people look at to gather a vibe about us. And if you're not sure about your vibe, and the reason why you're getting negativity or some clientele that aren't very, aren't your vibe, it could be from that. So you might want to start there. But we can get into authenticity next week. So for now, let it go. I encourage you to let it go. Let go of anything. One thing. It could be anything. Even if the person just cuts you off in the road, let it go. Love you guys so, so much. Thank you so much for listening to episode 3 of the Mind of Reese podcast. If you guys would like to listen to more, please, please, please go to my Spotify under The Mind of Reese, or my YouTube, which is Art of Reese. I apologize that everything's kind of different names, but as getting started, I'm starting to pick this all up and try to get organized with it. But I hope you guys really like this episode. Please, please, please leave comments and messages below. And anything you guys would like to know, ask me questions, and please screenshot and repost this on Instagram stories and stuff. I always, always, always repost, and I always do my best to answer all of my DMs and get back to each and every one of you with all the comments and everything, because I super duper appreciate it. It means the world to me, because the more I can hear from you and the more feedback I get from you, just the more that it pushes me forward to keep creating more of these episodes and to bring all the good stuff to you guys. So I send you off. Love you. Miss you. Until next Wednesday. Bye, guys.